Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Alignment Podcast. And I am so excited because today I have one of my A+ clients, my A+ students on the podcast with us, and that is Cheryl Lewis. How are you, Cheryl?
I am so good. Happy day. We're here. It's a little bit cold, but I'm so excited to be here talking to you after our time together for the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's actually Valentine's Day. We're recording this on Valentine's Day. It's not going to come out on Valentine's Day, but
Happy Love Day, right? Happy Love Day.
exactly. Well, I would just love to start off with a little bit about you because I actually find your story so fascinating, like your line of work, what you've done. But also I think you're local to Edmonton originally, or at least Alberta anyways. But if
Mhm.
you maybe just want to start there, just tell a little bit about, kind of your previous background, but then also just like what your experience and expertise is in.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, born and raised in Edmonton. I've done a lot of traveling, but this has always been home. It always feels like home. So, I think this is where those deep roots are always making me feel comfortable. I started my sort of journey, I guess, career wise, just out of high school. I was one of those folks who hated school, absolutely hated it. I know now, I have a little bit more insight now as I got diagnosed with ADHD later on in life before it was super cool and trendy, but definitely got a little bit of insight into why I struggled so much in school. I was one of those students who did really well without trying very hard. And so oftentimes I would get labeled as lazy, or it was like, you just aren't doing enough and you could do so much more. I can't tell you the amount of times that I was in conversations with teachers or, folks with any sort of authority in school, and they would say, you have so much more potential than what you put in. And at this point, I'm still, getting close to honors and things like that. And I just had zero desire to put more focus and energy into things that I didn't feel like I enjoyed or I liked. So it was always a struggle for me to feel like I was going, what was going to be next, right? Get through school. All I did was count down the times to get to the end of high school. I was like, I just want to finish this. Don't make me think about anything else. So finished that and then decided I was going to go to Nate. I thought, marketing was going to be it for me. I was really excited about the opportunities to jump in and to be able to be creative and focused. And then realized, oh, business is a bit more than that, right? You don't just get to go in and, make up fun things and have fun ideas. You actually have to do accounting and economics and management courses and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought, here we are again. Anyways, long story short is finished through that piece of school and immediately said, oh, this is not going to pay the bills. Marketing at that time was it was light. And I thought I had an opportunity to jump into healthcare. It was an entry level position, but it was something that I thought, okay, this could be great. It was a great pay. And at that time, that was the focus of paying back some of those loans. And that was it. I literally jumped into that space and I have not left the healthcare industry since then. I've dabbled in a bunch of different areas, but it really turned into, for me, starting in an entry level position. And within the first 4 years of that job, I had climbed to the second highest level that I could in that organization without being a clinician. So went from, starting down here to climbing up. And I thought, well, this is exciting, right? Being able to see and strive for something, not even really having a plan. It was not part of my career objectives. But what ended up happening is I started to dabble in project and change management. So it went from, hey, you're going to come in and you're going to do this, and me saying, there's a lot of things we could do to make this workflow better, to streamline these processes, to do this. And this was just my brain working. This wasn't any methodologies. I had no formal studies in those areas. And they were like, do you want to come in and do this special project for us? And I thought, of course I do. So went in and did that. That was the catalyst for me to get into management consulting. So I did that special project for a year, had tremendous results within the organization, caught the attention of a few folks that were in the provincial organization, the health organization here in Alberta. And that led them to say, hey, do you want to come over and do some work with us here? And that was the beginning. I ended up in this massive long-term management consulting journey, doing everything from project management to change management, teaching, implementation, training, and then continuing to progress my career in other program management, again, enhancing sort of my own personal skill sets and taking it even bigger. And then sort of continued that growth trajectory until this last role, which was an executive director role within a health IT organization, one of the largest ones in Canada and North America, um, managing all of their strategic clients and partners. So getting out of the day-to-day project management and focusing more solely on um, how I could take care of those clients who had that significant reciprocity across both organizations. So that was kind of what got me here. Um, but I would say the other side of the coin for me is that as I have gone through this journey, I was married, divorced. I have a now 16-year-old daughter. So I was the first of my friends to, have a child and trying to navigate this, career and ambition while I was sitting at home with a newborn going, wait a second, I don't want to take any time off. I was off for 5 months and I thought, I can't do this anymore. I jumped back in, and then, continued to manage health, all of the different aspects of, how do you regain control of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. But it was go, go, go from the second I graduated high school up until about 4 months ago. So I don't know if that kind of gives enough of a summary, but it's a lot, but really in a nutshell, that kind of puts me where we are today.
It's funny. So I know your story, but as you're telling it, I'm like, I have like 10 questions I need to ask. Like, where do I start? You know what I mean? It's so
Totally.
fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fascinating. And actually, this is not a question I was expecting to ask you, but I'm glad you brought it up because you did have your daughter quite young. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And I know even from just what you summed up, like, and I've learned more about how impactful your work has been in your industry just from things we've talked about. And it's not an industry I was familiar with, but I can tell just in the journey we've gone through together how impactful your work has been and the legacy you've left in that area. And I know you've mentioned you've worked with multiple Fortune 500 companies
Hmm.
before in this
Hmm.
line of work, but just to touch on what you just said, like, you said after 5 months of having her, you were ready to get back to work. So I'm curious because I think that's a big thing for women executives and women entrepreneurs is like a lot of women still want to have children. But, for the first time ever, it's, you know, it's this interesting dynamic where we still have that instinct to have children and be maternal. And let's face it, we're always going to be the primary like caregiver in that
Hmm.
situation. But we're also doing incredible things in the business world and we have ambition. And, we've talked a lot about the nervous system and how our body handles stress. But like, I had this conversation with another nervous system expert, and she was saying how this is the first time in history where our nervous systems had to have to keep up to this level. And for anyone listening, your nervous system, layman's terms, is just how your body handles stress. But, our grandmothers stayed at home and raised the kids. Our moms had the option of maybe working or maybe staying home. And now we're the first generation where it's like we're expected to work, but still bear children, you know? So and then men, let's be honest, their roles haven't changed that much. Maybe the way it looks has, but they're still just mainly the protector provider type, but they haven't had to go through as much changes. So I'm curious to ask you, like at that time,
Hmm.
now that you can reflect back on it, like that urge to start working right away, where did that come from? And was there any guilt associated with it?
It's a good question. So maybe I'll just say, the luxury that I had in terms of upbringing, home life. My mom was a working mom. So both my parents worked and they were out of the house, but my mom was uh, constantly on the computer, doing those things that at my age at that time growing up was not common to see. I had so many friends who had stay-at-home moms. And so the idea that my mom was, in and out of the house, or that she was working, on the weekends or in the evenings, that was conditioned in me from an early age. So to watch my mom putting in the extra hours because it was important, taking us to work on the weekends because she had extra stuff she had to get done. But at that time, remote working wasn't a thing. So it was like going to the office and spending, 4 hours there, helping her file things or do things because that's what she needed to do. So I don't know, truthfully, that I even knew any different. I didn't feel like that was an abnormal thing to be a working mom. So for me, when I was, again, I was young. I feel like I was 26 when I had her. First of all of my friends and family to have a child, excitement, fear, all of those things. But you're right. I was the primary parent. And so even though I was flourishing in my career, even though I was at a point where it was literally a growth trajectory, I made the decision to pause. Now, I was an independent consultant at that time, working for one of the larger, consulting companies. So for me, there was no EI, there was no, CPP, any of those things. Maternity leave wasn't a thing. I had to make sure that I was planning for that time. So we had done that. We were obviously very conscious of that going into it. And again, full disclosure, full transparency. I tell my daughter this to this day, so I'm not saying anything that's going to hurt her feelings, but I really struggled for the first 4 months. I struggled because I went from going at 150% all day, every day, to going to like, I've got this one job. That's it. I have one job to keep this little thing happy. That's it. And it was miserable for me because I didn't understand what to do with the rest of the capacity that my brain felt like it had. It was like, everybody always said, sleep when the baby sleeps. And I'm like, oh, I can't nap. Like, what do you mean nap when she's napping? Right. It was a very difficult thing because I went from full speed to what felt to me, and it wouldn't feel like this to everybody. For me, it felt like full stop.
Mm.
I also, and again, I say this to her with love, at that time, for me, I wasn't getting anything back. So like you're giving to this, beautiful creature who just needs everything from you. But they don't have that interaction. There's no, like, they're there, they see you, they love you, but they don't have any of those characteristics yet that define them as these little tiny humans. And so it wasn't until she was about 9 months where I started to feel like I actually could love and appreciate her for who she was. Before that, it almost just felt like a job, right? It was just doing something. And so, was there guilt to go back? No, I actually thought, if I go back with the right childcare, that's a big part of it. You have to be able to trust who you're giving this human over to. And I did. I thought, you will be a better child because I would not be capable in those moments in the state that I was in to give her the appropriate nurturing and, I guess, the games, the singing. I wasn't that mom. And so I thought the best thing for me to do was to be able to share that time and give her joint experiences that were going to allow her to grow in ways that I didn't feel like I could nurture her at that time.
I'm so happy you're so vulnerable about that because like I have heard women who say like, once they're getting near that 1 year, they're like, I need to go back to work. Like
Mhm.
they literally feel it, and not from a place of like having to like financially or anything like that.
Right.
Like that can be part of it. But just that sense of even like, I think it was my sister-in-law who said it to me. She's just like, I need more adult conversation. Like
Yeah.
and especially if at that time, like I mean, I'm not a mom, so I don't know, but like maybe if you don't have friends who are going through the same thing with you at the same time, it probably feels a little bit more isolating, I'm sure, when you're like you said, the only one in your family or friends to have a baby now, and you're navigating this for like the first time yourself. But then you just went from being full throttle all day long to an adult conversation all day long to now just you and this little one. Like, I'm sure that is really isolating for a lot of women, you know, and then I'm glad you said you didn't feel guilty about going back to work because you understand that for you and your daughter, that was the right decision to like be able to take care of both of you in the process, you know, because again, that's another conversation that comes up, which I know we'll get into, but this, especially with women, there's definitely this ingrained idea that we need to put everyone else's needs before ours. And we get so disconnected with what we need in the process that eventually it leads to burnout or whatever the case is. But most importantly, it's like if we keep on that trajectory, then we actually have no idea what brings us fulfillment or purpose or love. And if it goes against the grain of what everyone else says, then God forbid we admit that, you know?
Well, and let's be honest, the awareness that I have now and the awareness that I had then is much different. I would say that the easiest thing for me to do at that time was to mask what I really needed or wanted to go back to work. I masked that as a need for her, right? It was easier to say, no, this is better for her. And I mean, we know it was in the bigger picture, but if I was having that conversation or vocalizing it, it wasn't that I was feeling guilty about going back. I actually was fearful that I would be judged as a new mom. How dare you go back to work so early? How dare you let somebody else take care of your child when you're fully capable of doing it? I mean, I was in that space where, you know, you could never do anything right. I still think that that's, you know, definitely what gets projected on moms nowadays. I think it might be a little bit more. I think now we just have a little bit more awareness, but at the time, I didn't want to be home anymore. I didn't. I wanted to be back at work, but I would never say that out loud because I was too afraid that people were going to judge me for that statement, regardless of what I truly wanted, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm again so glad that you vocalize that because I'm sure there's a lot of women who feel the same way as you, and that's exactly it. And whether it be about this specific topic or something else, because there's a lot of opinions I think out there about women in business. Let's just be
Mhm.
honest. And even me, I've had to explore both sides of that. Like, am I doing too much or no? But I do like it, and it's about finding that right balance for you. But you'll always find a group that makes you feel bad or judges you for whatever decision you're making, right? But you
True.
know, we're all humans and we all want to belong and we all want to feel connected. So when that happens, you know, it's just about navigating it for yourself. So yeah, I'm so glad you shared that because I think a lot of women will relate to that. So I wanted to ask you,
Mm.
transitioning into that. So my next question is, so when we started working together or before we started working together, let everyone know what was going on in your world from an internal perspective and from an external perspective. So before, you know, and disclaimer, I don't know if that's the right word, but Cheryl and I actually met because her previous place of employment, I actually came in and did like a wellness retreat with them. And that's the first time we met. And then we ended up reconnecting a few months later based on, you know, her feeling, you know, going through what she's about to explain. But so I kind of had talked to you at that event and kind of got a glimpse into your world of what you were dealing with, but then things had changed. So yeah, maybe just let everyone know what was life like internally and externally, like right before we started working together.
Sure. So I think there's two pieces to that puzzle for me. So full disclosure, I had been on a health journey. So when you and I met, I think was and still am probably physically in my healthiest space. And so I had gone through this you know, mental dedication, if you will, of making sure that I was focused on going into my 40s at my as my best physical self. Um, Looking back now, going, that's great. The focus was there, the dedication was there, but I would say that that was a distraction from having to deal with the mental side of things and the emotional side of things. That was equally as important, but the physical felt easier, which is crazy because for a lot of people that is absolutely a difficult journey. So I had been in this sort of physical transformation for a couple of years, a few years, kind of leading into before you and I connected.
Well, and
And
I don't
go
want to
ahead.
cut you off, but I do, if you're okay with it, I do want you to share like what your physical transformation was. Cause this is not guys like her just committing to the gym every day. Like you had a major physical transformation. I don't know if you're open to sharing that, but
Yeah. I think, and I mean, it's not a surprise. I think for most people who know me, but I guess it's maybe for some who don't. But yeah, I went through the process of a physical transformation. I completely changed my lifestyle, right? And so, like, I've changed everything from, you know, evaluating hormones, nutrition, all of that kind of stuff, exercise, physical, food, all of that, and I've lost a significant amount of weight. I don't know what I want to say that out loud because I feel like it's one of those things where when I say it out loud, I can't decide if it's empowering or if it's not. But because it feels really, it's a difficult, um, it's a heavy burden because it was something that I feel like I carried for so long. I always struggled with my weight. And so the idea of me being able to share that I've gone through this transformation still feels a bit surreal for me. But
mm,
we are talking about a very significant amount in terms of where I started to where I am now.
okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
I'm like, is that fair? I feel like that's fair. It's
I
still
mean,
one of those, it's still a point of like, it's a really difficult thing for me because I feel, again, it goes back to that same thing of like, it's a lot of work and people acknowledge it and they go through the motions of saying like, oh my gosh, when you see people and you look great, but I'm like, I didn't do it because of how I looked. I did it because I needed to feel better. And I knew from a health perspective, I didn't want to go into my 40s feeling at risk from a health perspective. And so physically, that's the easiest way to transform things. But I forgot about the mental health side during that time. Didn't forget, I think I just avoided it, right? It was easier to focus on the things that I really understood.
well, and I think that's a great point to bring up because, like most of my clients, when they start working with me, like because they're type A personalities, like they're already on the bandwagon of eating clean and working out and like, doing the hit workouts and doing all that stuff. And I think it's for that exact reason that you said it's like they can, we can, me included, I went through this phase, like understand the physical more because it feels almost more tangible. Do you
Hmm.
mean like I can see the muscle building, I can see the
Right.
food I'm putting in my body, I can feel the weights I'm lifting, and
Yes.
just as humans overall, when things are physical and tangible, it's just easier for us to make that correlation of like, of this is the investment, this is the reward. Do you know what I mean? Where with something more intangible, like your mental or your emotional state, like that's like it seems almost a little bit more aloof, and it's like, where do you even start, you know?
Well, you don't see it and you don't see the immediate trend. Like I know if I'm making a healthy food choice, I can see it. I know it's there. It's there. It's obvious to me. So it felt a little bit easier to control that. And again, going back to the control thing. So we've got this like physical piece of me that's happening. Um, in the same amount of time, so I have this great career, very happy. I feel very well respected in my role at work. I feel like I had created a space that they very much were recognizing the value that I brought to the organization. It was all of these great things, so I feel like I had, so career wise I was really in a place where I had achieved what I would strive out for. I didn't know what was next, but I knew that I had gotten to a place where I felt great. I had just finished building my dream home, literally, like, out in the country during COVID. I'd made the decision that it was like, what, wanted some space and gone through this to the point where, like, off the corner of my desk when I was working, I was doing project management on this. Like, it was blood, sweat, tears, designed it from the ground up and everything inside. So I've got my beautiful dream house, my space that I feel is great. I've got my beautiful family. I've got this perfect career. Um, I've got this perfect life. Like health wise, I feel great. I've had these transformations. So from the outside, people, the comments were always like, wow, this is great. You're doing so well. You're doing amazing. And I remember, meeting with you, and there was one thing that you said to that day, and that was what it was for me. And that was this moment where I went, oh goodness, that is so raw. And you said to the group of folks as we were there, um, you can have it all, and it's okay to still question why you're not happy. And I thought, oh, it gave me like it hurt. It gave me this like gut wrenching, visceral internal reaction, because that's exactly how I felt. It's not that I wasn't happy, right? There were things in my life that were bringing me happiness. By all accounts, I have the best things that could bring me happiness, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't feeling like I was doing something that was for me. I didn't feel like I was waking up and putting my best authentic self forward every day. And I didn't understand why. And so for a significant period of time leading up to you and I meeting, I had this overwhelming sense of guilt on a daily basis because I could not figure out what was wrong with me. Why, when on the outside, I've got all of this, but I'm still waking up going, it, I don't feel like I've got all of this. Right. And so it was that moment for me where I went, okay, she's got my number, and I don't, but that was it. And that's what kind of kept us continuing to talk, because I go, she gets it. She gets it, because I couldn't put it into words. Right.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm glad that resonated with you. But like that is, I remember saying that and I speak about that often, but it's like when you have all the things everyone tells you should bring you happiness, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure you feel like this too. Like there's still moments of gratitude, like
Yeah.
grateful we have a great family, grateful we can, have a comfortable lifestyle and a beautiful home and a great career. But then it does, it does beg this question of like, I remember I like with what I just said, but also I would say like, is this it? Like, so
Yes.
then have I peaked? Like, is this it? And this is how it's going to feel for the next how many years? And like, and then that's also the guilt, like you said, because then you see a lot of people around you who maybe don't have the same things as you. And you're like, but why? And it makes you almost feel like you're broken.
Hmm.
Like, do I got a screw loose? Like, am I missing something in this that no one's telling me about? And it's, that can feel really isolating. And then because you quote unquote have this perfect life, you don't feel like you can talk to anyone about it. Cause like
Hmm.
again, back to the judgment, like, who are you to sit here and complain to everybody else when you have it made, quote unquote, from the outside looking in, and you still don't feel happy?
Absolutely. And I think you nailed it. It's going, is this it? Is this it? Like, you're always conditioned to strive for the next thing, right? Like, we've never been, at least in my growing up and at least in my experiences, it's always the next, right? And it's never about honoring what happens when you get to the next. It's just like getting to the next and going, okay, now what's next after this? And it was that overwhelming sense of, is this what it feels like? Is this, should I, like, where do I go from here? Because I didn't understand why this didn't feel good all the time. It's not that it felt bad, it just didn't feel good. And I thought, I don't want to just be okay with being okay all the time, because that was it. I never could say, I feel great. I'm having a great day. I'm like, I'm okay. And I'm thinking, there's got to be more than just okay all the time.
Hmm.
Right? I want to feel like I can genuinely say, I'm great. There's going to be days where I'm not great, and that's okay too. But I don't want to just be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you say that because so many of us do settle into that. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't know anything else really. And I think I remember when we sat down, like after we had originally met, and then we sat down to discuss like working together one on one.
Mhm.
And I was like, I promise there's light at the end of the tunnel. And I remember you looking at me, you're like, okay, if you say so, like I know you, there's a hope within you that like I could get you there, but you were also like, I have no idea what this quote unquote light even looks like, or even if it even exists, right?
Yeah, it's scary because I'm sitting back and going, there's got to be something. I and logically, so I would like to feel like I'm an intelligent person. I've got good emotional and social and business intelligence, and so logically in your brain you think you know what you need to do day over day to maybe feel or see improvement, but you actually don't, right? Or you don't even know how to achieve that. And so I think for me, when we sat down, it was like, I go, okay, I'm super self-aware. And I know that I am very aware, which can be good or bad, but I don't understand why then I can't get to the next step. Like, why can't I feel better? And, to be fair, the first thing you said was, I don't even think you know what the problem is. And I'm like, exactly, because I don't know what I'm solving. I can solve, in my mind, I can solve any problem, right? Super, again, controlling type A. But I go, damn it, you're right. I don't know what I'm solving. I think I'm solving something. And with our time working together, holy shit, was I wrong? Like, I would have been solving the wrong problem the whole time. But that's what this is all about, right? It's a journey, but you have to start somewhere, but you've got to be in a space to be able to understand, listen, be open to, and find people who can help, because it's not something that we can all do on our own, right?
I love that you made that point because that's exactly it. Again, with, people with similar personalities to us, executives, type A's, entrepreneurs, like you are the problem solver, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm sure anywhere you've ever worked, if there's an issue, we go to Cheryl and she's going to tell us exactly what to do, how to fix it in under 3 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that is like part of your identity. So
Yeah.
then to be like, I can solve multi-million dollar questions, but I can't solve my burnout. Like what?
Yeah.
It's like gut check. It's
Totally.
humbling. You know what I
I
mean?
didn't want to call it burnout though, Mintu. Like, that was the problem, is I was like, ooh, that's a heavy label. I don't think I'm there, right? And because again, it's a vulnerability or an acknowledgement that I was doing something wrong. I was failing at something, because why else would I be there? And so, gosh forbid I would ever say, oh, I'm totally burnt out. No, no way. I was like, okay, well, this is just going to take a couple of weeks to figure out. We're just going to try to see how we do this. But again, I had no idea the root of all of this when we started. I really didn't.
Again, another great point. Like, do you know how many people I have conversations with and they don't think they're burnt out? And then I start to like ask them questions. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's like indicator number one of burnout. That's indicator number two. And people just either have this perception of what they think it is. Like, I think most people think burnout is that they're just like, they can't get anything done. Like, they're just like lethargic on the couch and they can't function. Where all these people are high functioning type A. So I'm not burnt out because look at all the stuff I'm getting done in a day. And it's like, no, 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 no. That's not quite what it is, right? But you're right. Most people have no idea or don't want to admit that that's
Mhm.
actually what's going on beneath the surface, right? But I know you've heard me say this, like burnout is just disconnect. Like burnout is just the byproduct of being disconnected with yourself, and in this case of what we've been talking about, like you knew there was a disconnect purely for the fact that you had this, quote unquote perfect life, but inside that's not the feelings that were you were like relating to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Scary thought. But that was the first time somebody around me said it out loud. That
Mm.
was it. I had never heard somebody say it. So for me, like I said, it was a visceral physical reaction for me because I went, oh my God, that it was an acknowledgement that what I was feeling existed. Right.
Right, right. It was real, right? On a physical level, and just to simplify it for that exact reason, because I don't think people sometimes realize how their burnout is showing up. Now that we've gone through this, we kind of pinpointed some things like what was happening on a very basic level in your life that were indicators of your burnout. Like, was there any physical symptoms, any mental or emotional? Like, if like looking back now, what were like, oh yeah, that was a clear sign that I was burnt out, beside the feeling that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think there was a few. So I think from a physical perspective, like I said, because I was on this like health transformation, it didn't feel as much physical except for when I would have those moments of um uh I guess feeling like I was out of control, or like feeling like things were not, I wasn't doing the right things. Right. So, but that came from more of a sense of what felt like anxiety to me. So it would have these moments of like, you know, stomach aches, things that were coming through, feeling like I was losing my appetite. Right. So I went from, previously maybe being more of a stress eater to like suddenly feeling like, oh, this is, I don't want to eat, it's going to make me not feel good. So not healthy choices there. I think the biggest thing, and I've said this to you from day one, is sleep. And gosh, we have no idea how much our sleep changes our life. But it wasn't even the sleep, it was like the idea of me going, hey, wait a second, I can't sleep. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to start working in the middle of the night or answering emails, or worse, go on some kind of social media and listen to everybody else's opinions about things. All of these things would allow me to check out, because what was happening for me, work was so busy. There was so much, and working from home was also another challenge, because I used to tell people I don't work from home, I live at work. Right. That was the, because I would just, you know, walk down the stairs. That was my time to really like shut off. And so I would feel like it was this massive, I'm on a high all day, go, 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 150%. And then I'd come downstairs and I would just want to crash. Like I was tired. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't have anything I enjoyed anymore. So even things that I would have loved to do before, or even if I didn't, I would have been like, let's just do something. I just didn't want to. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be with the people that were doing it. It wasn't that. It was just that I just felt like I wasn't going to enjoy it anyways, or it was going to be more effort than I thought I had. And, it was a struggle. The other one that I think was, I don't like to admit, but it's true, was the snappiness, like that immediate mood shift of like, it could have been something as simple as like my dog wanting me to pet her. And I remember feeling and vocalizing in my brain, can you just not ask me for something too? You like, just the idea of me, this dog is just looking for me to love her. And she's just thinking, oh, mom's finally sitting down and I can sit on her lap and I can, and just pay attention to me. And in my brain, I was so resentful because I'm like, can I just have some space? Like, can I just have a moment without somebody needing something from me? Right. And so I didn't realize, but like that was coming through in my demeanor, in my mood, in my encounters with the people that are around me. And that, I think, was probably the one that hurt the most. Right.
Yeah, and such a relatable thing that everyone goes through. And then, the slippery slope with that is like when you're at that point of being extremely irritable, right? Because you do kind of, once your energy and your tank is that far gone, and you get to that point of irritability, it's hard to really draw that back. It's like you're constantly like a live wire or frayed wire,
Mhm.
and as soon as someone touches you, you zap them type thing.
Mhm.
But then the other side of that is every time you snap, then after it, you start to guilt yourself for the
Totally.
fact and judge yourself for the fact that you snapped. And it's like, and then it kind of turns into this vicious cycle of you being irritable with everybody else. And then when that comes out, then you're even harder on yourself, which perpetuates the irritability. Do you know what I mean? And it's this vicious hamster wheel of burnout. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Of being disconnected from yourself, of feeling like, I don't want to be this way. Why do I keep acting this way? Or why do I keep responding this way? You know, and then, but again, the self-critic and the self-judgment also doesn't help that cycle. But most of us don't know any other way to talk to ourselves, you know?
Yeah, that's right. It was absolutely about that cycle of having these things happen, making myself feel terrible, wanting to change, not knowing how to change, and making myself feel worse at the end of the day because now I was snapping at everybody and myself, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm curious. I know you kind of touched on it already, like the admitting you're burnt out thing, but was there anything else, like once we met and talked, was there anything that made you hesitate about getting started to like go down this journey with me and like and do the one-on-one? Was there anything besides like just the fact that you had to admit that you're burnt out that was that
Well, that's a
like
huge
had some
one.
hesitation? Oh, for sure it is. And it's a very real one, you know?
Yeah, like so I think there was a couple of things. So the first was I think, and so as we've continued on this journey together, it's become clearer to me why you and I have had this encounter and why we ended up meeting. But at the time, I think to myself, is this going to be like everything else, right? Like where, if I'm going to do this, like what does this actually look like? And is there going to be a result at the end of this that is going to actually make me feel different? It was doubt in the sense of could it be done? Now, I watched you and your transformation, and that's amazing. And I thought, well, that's you though. Like, what happens if it doesn't work for me? Right. Again, it's that critic in the back of my mind saying, like, well, who knows if it's really gonna. But the other thing, and I was very transparent with you on this, was I felt horrible actually putting any kind of investment in something that was only for me because this idea of coaching and transformation and going through this, I know that long term people around me will benefit by way of my changing or improving. But in the moment I thought, oh my goodness, I cannot imagine putting an investment of any kind into something that is only beneficial for me. The guilt of saying to myself, like, here's all the other ways that I could invest in all of these other things around me in the same capacity. And I'll be honest, like that was a moment for me where I had to really say, and that was probably decision number one, where I had to say, no, if I'm not going to invest in this for me, nobody's going to do it for me. Things will never change. What do I have to lose? What do I have to lose at this point? I'm willing to come to the table. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to do it. She's willing to do it. What am I hesitant over? And that was it. I just thought I have to do this for myself. But that was a battle in my brain for a good, well, I don't know how long it took me to commit, but it was enough for me to go, I really need to think this through. And that in itself, knowing what I know now, is step number one. Because if you are going to continuously talk yourself out of the things that you need for you, then you're not ready to change yet, anyways.
Valid, very valid point. And it's that exact belief process is which is why people are in the position of being burnt out or disconnected, is because they don't understand. And with no judgment, I've been there, you've been
No,
there. Do
totally.
you mean that of just like, again, going back to what we said earlier, and men do this too, but just like taking care of everyone else and everything else before ourselves. The belief, the skill set of looking after you feels foreign and uncomfortable. So making an investment in yourself, like, oof, I don't know about that. When people take courses and training with work, people go to school and pay exorbitant amount of money to go get degrees with hopes of getting a job, and that's an investment in yourself. It's a matter of what's been normalized. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But then also, like you said too, it's like that natural tendency of you knowing how, like, your skill set and your talent, and that, like, if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish it. Obviously, you know that, and you've proved that in your career. But like you said, when it comes to something a little bit more intimate and vulnerable, it's like, well, can I do it? Do you know what I mean?
What's
Like you said, is it gonna
scary? Like, you kept saying to me something of, you always say to me, and I love you for this, but you always say to me, like, I'm so proud of you for taking, and I would go, ooh, like, I would just have this like moment of like cringe, because I was like, again, I associated this idea of self-worth and self-love and self-improvement and self-care as being, okay, well, if I just go get a massage for the day and go to the spa, like, yes, that's great, but like, in my brain, I'm like, okay, no, do you mean I actually have to deal with my inside, my feelings? I'm well aware, and I don't, I don't know what questions you've got, but I'm well aware that like I was coming, and still do come, to the world in a more masculine sort of energy, because that's just how it's been in my career. So the idea of having to deal with my feelings, thoughts, what's going on in here, having to be nice to myself in moments of weakness and all of that, I was like, ew, who does that? Ew, right? So it was those true raw moments where I went, okay, so now I'm investing in myself. I have to do the work, fine, but I have to be vulnerable enough to be honest with myself, because if I'm not going to be honest with myself, I'm wasting everybody's time, right? And so all of these things compounding with like, okay, well, I don't even know what it means then to think about self-care or whatever reflection. I joke with you often about how when we first started this, to get me to write anything down in a journal, like, I was like, oh my God, that felt like the worst, like literally the worst activity I would ever want to do in life. And now I'm like, okay, I'm just writing stuff down. I'm just having this because it's that moment of vulnerability that it's just for me, right?
Mhm.
So you just think about those things that you have to go through at the beginning when you're just not feeling prepared to do that, but you just have to do it. Unless you're going to just start every day, you're further behind, right?
Well, and further behind and further disconnected from yourself. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, as you're talking, I always think about, and I'm sure I've said this to you, like, there's the version that we show up in as the world, this identity, this mask, that this armor that we've been wearing for so long. And then there's the other version of us, which is the true version, which is the version of you that does have emotions, that does have feelings, that does want to be vulnerable, but you haven't paid attention to her, or given her any time in so long, and
Mm.
she doesn't go anywhere. She's still there. But what happens is, the more you stay attached to this mask and identity, the further you get from her, and that space in between, that's where the burnout happens. That's where the irritability happens, the brain fog, the constant overthinking, the doom scrolling, the terrible sleeps, the indigestion, just all these things. It's in that gap where those happen, you know? So, just because it's uncomfortable for you to face her, deal with her, doesn't mean she's going anywhere. And you're right. That's where the choice and the commitment to be like, okay, I'm finally going to take a look in the mirror and see what's going on here, which is scary, as you said. Um, that's where the magic happens, right? There's so much wisdom in the parts of us that we avoid. And, transitioning to the next question is, what has been the biggest aha moment or epiphany for you so far in this process?
Oh, I have to pick
Um,
one. Only pick one.
I mean, you can give me one or two. That's fine if you want to give me a couple. But like, what has been the biggest like wow moment for you so far since we've started working together?
So, I feel like, okay, so we've started doing all of this journey, and there's a couple of things, and maybe I can kind of summarize it into a little bit of a timeline because it'll make more sense to those who are listening. But when I first started working with Mintu, I was able to, I was taking a break. So maybe that's the one piece to this puzzle that I want to highlight as well, is when I was going through this motion and I was starting to feel this way and I was feeling overwhelmed. It just happened to be that my employer was like, we're going to do this mass round of I guess layoffs, if you will, or packages and all of that. And I thought, this is it for me. And I put up my hand. And so it was this also moment of scary times for me, thinking, who gives up a great job? Who gives up all of this stuff? Who does that? But I knew it would afford me an opportunity to figure out what was next. I wouldn't have used it in that moment as time to rest, but it was more of the idea of saying, okay, well, maybe this is, it's time for a shift. So when we first started to work together, within the first like 3 weeks of me being off, I was like, I'm going to do this. I have all these plans. I have all of these things that I'm going to do. I was not stopping. I was filling all of my spare time with any and everything because I didn't like the quiet, or like feeling like I didn't have something to do that day, which is wild. So it was like going through that journey of what is every day going to look like, but like, what's next, right? What's next? And I would say it was probably around maybe 6 weeks of us working together, maybe a little bit before that. And I went, oh, I'm tired. And you used to always say to me, be kinder to yourself, because like I would have these moments of, my purpose was working. Now all of a sudden I felt like I didn't have a purpose. And you're like, no, be kind. This is your time. This is your purpose. This is a gift, right? That was the thing. This is a gift. And so like honor that and use it in the right way. So of course, there's all of these emotions that I'm going through while we're going through this healing journey. But it wasn't until right before Christmas where I was having some, I don't want to call it personal conflict because it makes it sound more dramatic. But at the end of the day, it was me having an opportunity to do something that was just for me. I knew I wanted to do it. In my brain, like if you asked me, my gut instinct was, can we do it? It was about the opportunity to go on a trip over the holidays and to take some time to actually like, you know, go away and do it in a moment that was not for anybody else, right? It wasn't because I was forcing myself to take a break from work. It was a last minute exciting thing. And I knew it was going to cause conflict. I knew that with people around me, it was going to create hurt or pain or conflict because I was now not going to be around in a space or capacity that they were used to me being around. And it was, I spent 90 minutes on the phone with you, I think, when I was like, here's where I'm at and here's what I'm doing. And all of the work that we had been doing, the small incremental changes, and I was starting to feel all of the positive impacts of these small incremental changes that I was making over the course of these weeks. And we were in the middle of one of the modules that was really talking about being able to choose you and being able to honor that and to not own the outcome of other people's feelings towards some of those decisions, really. And I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but and I'm like, but it was scary. It was scary to be able to do that. And by the end of our conversation, you had said to me, you already know what you want to do. You already know. So I don't know why you're avoiding it. And I thought, rude, but okay. But it was true. I was trying to convince myself why I shouldn't. But all of the work that we had been doing up until that moment was to get me to a point where I could say, you know what, I'm going to do it in spite of how this might make somebody else feel or how they may perceive the situation or how, but I'm going to honor myself and what I want and what I need. And I'll deal with the repercussions if there are any. And it was an absolute catalyst of a moment for me because it was difficult. It was just as hard as I thought it was going to be. I had moments of stories in the back of my mind. I'm a terrible person for doing this. Even though we had done all of this work and I had made the decision, right? I knew this was happening. Stories coming back here. It was an immediate, move of, regression, if you will. But the way I could come back in that moment was like, this was a pivotal change for me. That decision, the outcome of that conversation or many conversations, the impact of, me choosing myself. And I think even when I came back to you, after I was back and I was saying, there was a moment when I was gone where I said, I'm genuinely happy. I felt myself away in a moment, and it didn't matter what was around me, and it didn't matter. It was just this moment of, this is what it should feel like. This right here. It didn't matter who was there. It didn't matter, but it was me honoring in that moment what I was feeling, where I was, what was making me feel at peace, and being my unapologetically self. Like, it was completely authentic. I wasn't masking anything. I wasn't hiding anything. I wasn't doing anything other than just being me. And it just felt so freeing because it was the first time in probably my life. I mean, who knows? But it was the first time in as long as I can remember where I felt good. I felt good. And that was like, and that's a feeling that you can't even describe. And so whatever I was feeling leading up to that moment, you had me. I was a firm believer after that. I'm all in, right? And I mean, I was from the work before, but that was it. It was that pivotal moment. And I would say since that pivotal moment for me, the way that it has just become seamless to just prioritize the things that I need to just continue on that path. You don't want to go back, but making that as a forefront in those decisions and those thoughts and all of that during the day is just so much simpler. It's not easy, but it's simpler because I'm no longer complicating it myself.
That moment when I saw you go through that, and again, from the outside looking in, doesn't sound like a big thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're taking a trip over Christmas, like to a tropical place. Like, oh, hard decision to make,
Mhm.
right? But watching you navigate, again, the internal self-talk, the self-critic, the guilt that was coming up, the tendency and the pattern of always putting other people's feelings and wants and needs before your own. And you just, while I did have some, I gave you a little tough that love that
You
day and be like,
did.
book it already. You know what I
I
mean?
know. I
Why
needed
isn't it
it
booked
though.
yet? Yeah.
I needed
But
it.
you you making the choice, and like literally I could see like a complete shift in you. It's like, oh, this is a new person now. Right? Sounds dramatic, but truly it was like, oh,
Mhm.
this is a new version. This is version 2.0 of
Mhm.
you and what that did. And you're absolutely right. Ever since then, and I'm going to transition into this next part
Mhm.
here. Um, ever since then, you have been able to dial in and fine tune exactly what you want in this next chapter. And again, like, I'm glad you touched on the fact that you're in a bit of a unique position because you aren't
Mhm.
working, quote unquote, right now because you had gotten a package. And we had talked multiple times about how, like, then we, like you said, it's a gift and we need to make the most of this sacred pause. And you were, I remember the first few weeks, you're like, I'm going to be back working by January. And I remember sitting there listening to you. I'm like, just let her talk, Minh-Thu. Just like, don't burst her bubble yet. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's too quick. But like, I'm just here to guide and facilitate your journey. It's your choice. Right. But
Mhm.
I remember you being so gun ho because you had been in fight or flight for so long. So again, this idea of slowing down, like what? Like, no, 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 we don't do that. Like you said, work was your purpose. And as we got closer to that date, again, things were starting to settle in where you started to feel the tired and then you started to feel more comfortable being with yourself, feel more comfortable not having to have 10 things to do today, and like feel comfortable writing, journaling, sitting with yourself, being with this version of you that you had been avoiding for so long. Like you could just start to see that gap between who you had been and who you actually are closing slowly, like just step by step, just getting closer and closer together, and so watching that moment happen in that shift. And then since then, you know it's been wild. Like
Yeah.
every week I talk to you,
Yeah.
because for the record, I'm sure you're going to say this, like, Cheryl's not retired, guys. Like she's still she's still
Need
gonna
to go
get,
back to work. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, she's eventually going to get back to work. But you know since then, the opportunities the
Yeah.
universe has been throwing your way has been wild in the
Wild.
best way. I don't even know if I've witnessed something like this before, like just seeing you go through it. But what's been happening is because you've become way more connected with yourself, getting in touch with who you truly are, like I almost feel like you're playing with the universe now, where you're like, nope, nope, that's not what I want. Like it's been wild to witness. And also, like, the best way I can say it is like your light has just gotten brighter and brighter and brighter. And like maybe you'll want to touch on this, but I know when we first started working together, there was some conversations around imposter syndrome,
Mhm.
right? And just like
Mhm.
you have done like no questions asked, like from what I've heard of people in your industry, how they speak of you, like your legacy and impact on the work you've done is like no one questions it. Like it's
Mhm.
solidified, right? But you still had moments of being like, of that imposter syndrome. And now it's like you're finally seeing like, no, I'm that chick, I'm that bitch. Like, like I am her, you know what I mean?
I know.
Yeah.
That's the surprise. Anybody who's worked with me is like, didn't you know that all along? I'm like,
Right.
I had no idea. I had no clues. Yeah, listen, I agree. I think there's a couple of things here that are super interesting in this for me is that starting from, when I took this package and it was a choice and I go like, who does that? Right? Like, I mean, again, that logic of like, who walks away from something that is like, whatever, but it no longer was serving me. I know that now. Maybe at the time it felt like there was other reasons to do it or whatever, but looking at it now, I knew what I was doing there was no longer aligned with anything that was going to get me to where I want to be, right? So that's step 1. Now I'm like, okay, so it was like this pivotal moment of me going, no, this is me and I'm not going to apologize for this and I am who I am and I don't want anybody to change themselves or cater to me in any capacity. I'm just becoming a lot more clear with what it is that I need in order to continue to be free, be happy, be authentic, be, satisfied, all of the words that are just, anchored down by, I just want to feel whole, like with where I am and what I'm doing. Um, the idea of being a female executive in any capacity, I can tell you, when I walked into my first meeting at, yeah, I was 22 years old. I remember going in and I was doing, management consulting gig, and there was a male at the table, and his first response to me was, "Who brought the babysitter?" Right? Didn't matter what my experience was, how good I was, how not good I was. But that was the grounding for the idea that I always had to do more and accept less. I was always striving to do harder work, but I was okay with somebody else taking the credit or not being acknowledged in a way, or like having to wait for the growth. Now, I got lucky in my career where I found great leaders or mentors who saw my value despite me sometimes not seeing that, and working with me to get to those next levels. And I'm forever grateful for that. Now, I'm at the point where I'm going, no, I'm not going to go in for less than where I was, because that's just the job market today, or that's just the way that things should be. I'm not willing to step aside and say, oh, I'll just do something and then I'll prove myself again within an organization or on my own. I'm for the first time in these conversations that I'm having with different organizations or teams, for the first time, like I had somebody who was kind enough to say something like, "Thank you for the impact that you've made in this space." And I said, "You're welcome." I didn't deflect it. I wasn't saying, "Oh no, it was me and a team," or it was, of course it was. But it was that moment of being able to go, no, I am really proud of what I've done. I really am proud. And see, I can say that without cringing anymore, because it's true. I feel very proud of what I've done, and I'm now solid and confident in my contributions to my own success. I will no longer deflect those to other people. I will honor what that is. But the value that that has for me is dependent on me, not on what somebody else thinks my value is. And that's really what it boils down to. So turning away some of these opportunities, while some people are going, why would you? And I'm going, no, that was really easy. Like, I didn't even have a reaction because I knew right away that's not at all what I want. Or that person didn't even ask me what I want, and they're just assuming that that's what I want. Well, I don't want to work there for that either. Right. So it's also about going through this journey of, is this going to work with another organization? Maybe, maybe not. And if it doesn't, I will make something work for myself. And I know that. But it's taken me this journey to get to that point, and to not just accept whatever somebody is willing to put my way, because that's the value that they think I bring, or that's what I think I should do, because I don't want to get judged or talked about for not accepting something, or for making somebody upset by not accepting something, right?
I can tell you that it has been fun. It has been inspiring. It has been motivating to see how you've been navigating this stuff. Like, for me, like when I watch you, like, again, guys, like, no, nowhere to lie, she's getting opportunities every week thrown at her, and she's not going out to look for it. Like, you're not looking for a job right now. This is literally just people being like, hearing that you're available and being like, I need to get in with her. I need to get in with her. Like, she is being sought out. Okay. And seeing you navigate this, and like, I remember, again, there was an opportunity around Christmas that you're like, yeah, I think this could be fun, and I think it would be good, and this might have been like the third opportunity at that time, and I was like, oh, okay, like, let's see. Like, again, you didn't feel overly like excited, but it was still a great opportunity. All of them have been. And now we're at like opportunity like 11 being thrown at you within just a matter of months.
Mm.
And I say this all the time. What you say no to is just as, if not more important than what you say yes to. And every time the universe throws at you a little bit of like razzle dazzle, you have been like, nope, nope, graciously, nope. And every time I get so fired up because I see you finally, again, realizing who the fuck you are and
Yeah.
unapologetically, authentically being like, I know me, I know my worth, and
Hmm.
I know what I am capable of. And like the way you're handling these conversations, the way you're navigating this space, it's like it inspires me to do it more, to level up, be like, shit, like I need to be following her lead. You know what I mean? But it's the same thing. And I know you and I talked about this earlier this week, like a star athlete that's a free agent. Like
Hmm.
if the, Patrick Mahomes, you know, Kansas City quarterback is all of a sudden a free agent, you best believe every team is going to be throwing their best hat in the bucket. I don't know if that's the saying, but you know what I mean? Like they're
Pro
going to be doing
sports.
whatever they can. Yeah. They're going to be doing whatever they can
Yeah.
to win him over because they realize, and he is going to be strategic and very intentional on where he goes. And like just watching you navigate this, like honestly, is so inspiring to witness. And it just, I can't say it enough. Like honestly, I'm inspired every week when we get together and talk and you tell me about another opportunity that comes up and you say no. And again though, but like for anyone that's listening, whether this is a job opportunity, a relationship, anything, the universe responds to your actions. The universe responds to your choices. And sometimes it is scary to say no. Not
Hmm.
like 9 times out of 10 it's scary to say no, especially when you're, again, used to being more of a people pleaser, more of putting everyone else's needs before you. Saying no isn't usually your go-to. You're usually more of a yes person in the sense that yes, I can make it happen and I'll make it work. So then when it comes to saying no, that is scary because you're like, am I turning something away? Am I thinking I'm better than this when I'm actually not? Is this actually a really great opportunity that I should just be taking advantage of? And again, just you saying no has been like so inspiring for me. So just like, thank you for letting me witness that.
Oh, I mean, listen, I couldn't have done it without you in this program, literally. And I say that with all sincerity. Like, I am your Flava Flav from now on. I am your hype woman forever because I was completely not sold. And if I can do it, anybody can do it, like truly. And this is still a work in progress for me, right? We're still in the middle of doing this. And so I know that it's going to continue to get better, and I'm going to continue to refine these, and I'm going to be making changes and am making changes that are lifelong sustainable changes, right? It is changing those patterns. It is changing that behavior that I didn't even know was there. And so going in and saying, to the universe, hey, listen, this isn't right for me. Do I worry about that sometimes, saying no? Some of them I don't. Sometimes you're just like, yeah, that was an easy one. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Or I'm scared to say no, even if I think that I don't want something, because you're like, I have to think about it or whatever. That I don't think changes. But what's important for people to understand is that the amount of rumination that I do on this is what changes. I'm not dwelling on it. It's not changing the trajectory of my day. I'm not panicking. I'm not overthinking it. I'm not, sitting back and second guessing, when you have those shower conversations with yourself and saying, like, I should have said this. I'm not doing that anymore. And that's the important thing. It's never going to be perfect. I'm never going to know exactly what to do, when to do it. I'm going to fail. I'm going to misstep. I'm going to do those things. But as long as I am kinder to myself when it happens, fail fast, pick up, and just move forward and use it as a learning lesson. Like, what could you do differently? What could improve? That's important. And to make sure that I am not um, owning those for that lengthy period of time, that it's actually impacting the rest of what's going on in my world for any period of time. So it's a learning that I'm still on. um but I'm so thankful because I do feel it. I do. And I never, however many weeks ago with you, never in life would I have said, oh yeah, within this time I'll feel like this, right? I wouldn't have done it. And now I'm like, oh no, I'm all in, right? It's true.
Amazing. Yeah, it's and again, just love what you said. It's not that these things ever go away. It's not that the stress or the challenging moments or anything like that ever go away. We're humans, none of us are exempt, but it's that delta that gets
Mhm.
shortened, right? The amount of rumination, like you said, the amount of energy, the amount of tabs that need to be open for every decision, those get closed. And that, guys, is where the burnout comes from. That's why you feel so exhausted and overwhelmed, is because you have 8 million tabs open to make two decisions, where
Mhm.
it's like where you, if they can open and you can close them right away, think about how much time, energy, peace that is saving you by not having to go through such a gauntlet. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Every time you make these choices for yourself. So, um, one last question.
Of course.
And this has been an incredible conversation. I can't wait for people to listen to this. For anyone who's thinking about working with me or starting this program and they're on the fence or they're hesitating, like what would be your advice or recommendation if they're thinking about potentially working with me or getting started on this program?
Do it. Like, I don't even know what else to say. Can I have a sign that just says, no, please trust the process? And I will say to you, I will say to anybody listening, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Change is possible at all points in life, regardless of where you are, at your lowest low or your highest high. But I think the most important thing is you've been there. You're not somebody who's looking at me and going, oh, you should just do this different. You're literally looking at me and going, bitch, I've been there. I know exactly what you're doing. And I know exactly, like, you'll call my number before I even say anything. Or you'll give me the space because you know that I'm going to get to the right conclusion. But the idea of having somebody who's been in that space before, who's gone through the journey, who you know is on the other side of it, and who has a method and a program that is laid out, that is not there to consume all of your time. It is not there to change everything all at once. It doesn't feel like all of a sudden, it's so much that are so heavy that you can't, you can't own it all in one stay. So for me, it was all of those things that sold me. And I can say to anybody who's listening that maybe doesn't know you or knows you in a different way, the authenticity of you as a human who shows up, the energy that you bring, the aura that you have in terms of like the desire to see these positive outcomes in people who cannot see that in themselves yet. It's like it's a godsend, really, because it helps people to learn that it's possible, right? And for us to start to be kinder to ourselves and want to do it, we need somebody to be kind to us. And that was the safe space that I think you offered in a moment when I didn't even know that I needed it. So that would be, so just do it. That's my sign. Just do it. Don't question it. Just do it. Just take the step.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words. That's like honestly really, really touching. And, I get so much joy and purpose out of just seeing people have the transformations that you've had. Like, no doubt that, like, every time I witness that, every time I hear it back and am reminded of those moments, I like just in my heart know that this is like the work I should be doing. But again, I can't say enough like how much just watching you go through this has inspired me to also do the same, to also play bigger, to quit playing small, to again pick and design the life I want. And like it's just so inspiring, so motivating. And I just can't thank you enough for choosing me to be your coach and choosing to be vulnerable with me and go down this journey and for sharing this today. Because I know whoever listens to this is going to be able to relate. They're also going to feel inspired. And so just thank you for sharing your time and energy with everybody.
You're so welcome. And I can't wait to see what happens after the next 6 weeks, right? So
Yeah, man, every week we get to we get to a session, Cheryl has some like life-altering thing to tell me in the best way. So maybe we'll do another one in 6 weeks and we'll have a whole new set of things to talk about.
thank you so much for everything that you do and for doing this and sharing these stories with people. I think it's tremendous.
Amazing.